Welcome back, everybody. Well, as you know, we've been working on some tractors here. This is the Cat 15. We rebuilt the magneto. The impulse coupler was defective on it, so it needed some parts. Very hard to find. Tore the magneto apart, greased the bearings, regapped the points, and by the will of God, it actually worked. I was surprised. But then we went after the carburetor, ordered parts for it, ordered a kit. It took about a month to get here, and this is one of the reasons I needed the kit. I needed that gasket. And in the meantime, while waiting for the kit, I redid the wiring harness for the ignition. The wires that were in it were cracked and deteriorated, so I replaced it with some good silicone wires. It's a 7mm copper core, just what we need. Now onto the Clee track. The Clee track, I actually got the engine fired the other day. When it was running though, I got some rattling noises from this water pump, the piece in the center there, so I might have to rebuild that. And heading back down, we ran into this traffic. Apparently there's an accident up ahead, and they said it's going to be 3 to 4 hours before it was cleared, so we turned around and went back. And in taking the long way back, the differential in the truck started making some noise. So I took it into a shop to have it fixed. Big mistake. Cost me $4,000. Ouch. And a few days later, my wife and I were up in her Jeep Wrangler, and same thing, traffic accident, got stuck, had to turn around. So we took the long way home, and the rear end in her Jeep started making a terrible noise. I've worked on rear ends before, and I figured I could do this one. But this is what we had. A lot of play in the pinion here. Sloppy pinion bearing, and the yoke would pop in and out. So we're going to clean up the road grime off this, and then we'll pop the bolts out and knock the cover off. See what we've got going on inside. I had figured since the pinion was so sloppy that the oil had leaked out, but there's quite a bit of oil still in it, which is good. So I drained it out here. One thing I am noticing is there's not a lot of metallic contamination in here. Usually with worn gears you'll see like a rainbow metallic effect. The pinion gear apparently was banging into the carrier, and it cut these nice little polish marks in it. They're not too bad, so I'll take my grinder with a flap disc and polish them down and try and eliminate any possible cracking. So next we need to knock out this spider pin. This holds the spider gears in place, or gives them something to rotate around. Now we have to pull this pin out so we can get out the C-clips that hold the axles in, so we can pull out the carrier assemblies so we can get to the pinion gear. God, this is starting to sound like when I was working on the tractor. You got to pull out part A to get to part B, to get to part C, to get to part D, so you can wind up getting the part that you wanted to replace. Alright, well this pin looks pretty good. It's got some polish marks on it from wear, but there's nothing that would keep me from using it again. There's no grooves in it that I can catch with my fingernails, so it's still serviceable. Now we'll push the axle in and drop the retainer clip into the differential. That retainer clip is what holds the axle in. And then it's simply a matter of grabbing the axle and sliding it out. Normally this wouldn't happen while you're driving down the road, because the spider gear pin holds the axles from sliding in so that the axle doesn't come out. Now this axle doesn't look good. The inner bearing race of the axle bearing is actually the axle, so it will wear into your axle over time. That's what's happened here. After 130,000 miles, I'm really not surprised. But We'll change the brake shoes and the bearings, the seals while we're there. Alright, back to Mr. Differential. Alright, we're going to take out the carrier retainer bolts. Now you want to make sure that you put these pieces back in the same order that you take them out, or actually in the same position. The caps normally are not marked, so you do need to mark them because they are machined in place on assembly. But this differential apparently has been apart before. There's a stamp mark on each bearing cap and a stamp mark on the differential housing, so I know which part goes in which position. So here is a small T stamped into the case, and here's a small T stamped into the bearing cap. So I know that they go on together on that side. And on the other side, there's a T stamped into the case and a T stamped into the bearing cap. But they're laying on their side, so they should be easily enough to identify. Although I wish somebody with some intelligence would have used like A and B, or 1 and 2, something that's not mistakable. Okay, we got those caps out. Now we got to pull the cluster out. And most of the time you're not going to be able to do it by hand. So let me show you an easy way to do it. Oh, look what I found. Retainer clip for the axle. That's cool. Now it looks good. We'll reuse it. Or maybe we'll replace it. They're cheap. So anyhow, you put a screwdriver in on the ring gear to where you get a good seat on it, and then you turn the pinion and it will push the ring gear and assembly right out. Makes it real easy. No tugging, no hammering, no prying. You do want to keep these washers though. These need to go back on the same side that they came off of, preferably in the same direction as well. And I'm going to mark each washer as I take it out to make sure I get it back on the same side. Now these bearings are going to be replaced, so I'll probably need to do some adjustment on the in-play of the carrier assembly. There's a few adjustments that you need to do to make sure that you get proper gear wear. If you do not do these adjustments, then you will wind up having a very short life on your new differential. So we'll pop the other spacer out, or other washer. These are pretty thick. Now if you find that you need more washer, then you can get a shim kit. Now that we've got all the retainers out, we can lift the carrier assembly out. Be careful you don't pinch your fingers. And now we'll take a look at the ring gear. It's no good. Too much wear. You clean it off a little bit. Yeah, it's toast. Let me show you here what I'm seeing. Let me get it lined up here. It doesn't look too bad just looking at it, but you'll notice that there's a grayish area on the face of the gear. That's the hard coating of the gear has been worn off because the pinion, of course, was not lined up properly, being so loose. Once the hard face wears off, that gear has a very limited life. So we'll be replacing the ring and the pinion together as a pair. You always want to do that If you don't, then you will wind up with a very short-lived gear assembly. Let's take a look at Mr. Pinion here. You'll notice there's shiny spots on the tip of each of these teeth. Those shiny spots are where they were colliding against the carrier assembly. I also noticed that there's not a lot of metallic particles in the oil, or virtually none, so this has not been a long-term ongoing problem, something that's just happened recently. Now I noticed this pinion nut is loose. I can turn it by hand. That should be torqued down. That should not move. So that's probably our main problem that started this whole issue. I pulled out the yoke and it looks okay, but I'll probably replace it simply because the splines inside are probably worn. Well, now it's time to pull out Mr. Pinion. Should just lift right out. We have a couple bearing races that we need to knock out, but those should come out quite easily. You see this bearing here doesn't look good. It's got that gray look to it, which means that it's worn. Now here's the pinion seal. That'll get replaced. It's old and dirty, kind of like me. Now I knocked out the forward bearing race, and here's the forward pinion bearing. We saw that a little bit earlier. Nice gray, worn out, kind of like me. And here's the forward pinion outer race. You can really see where the gray is on this one. Very good example of having the wear go through the hard coating on it. The shiny part's good, but the rest is crap. And here's a picture of a duck. This guy was hanging out down at the Monte Cristo campground. I guess he's a high altitude duck, but never seen one before in this location. Well, that'll about do it for this round. I got parts for the Jeep on order. My truck is fixed and running. Yeah, total for this month so far is $5,600 in auto repairs, something I can ill afford on a fixed income. Whoopee! Anyhow, see ya!